Good morning and welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on the Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering church-related matters on this your Thursday, and we're looking at a topic: were the pastors, their wives, and children eating that? So, were the pastors, their wives, and children eating that? So, this is what I'm looking at here with you. Welcome again. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you for your word and for the blessings, dear Lord, of knowing thee, the only true God. I pray, dear Lord, you may bless us as we start together. May you bless our minds. I pray for Christ's sake. Amen. So, looking at this topic here, which is the continued theme that I started yesterday, which is where the topic is where the pastors and their wives and children eat in that. So, whatever that is, I will clarify as I did yesterday, and I'll try to make it more plain. Where they eating? What are they eating? What are they partaking of? And are they getting a better results than, say, the secular society? And that's important because if you're in a belief that you have the truth and you're supposed to have better results, so the results are supposed to be rock solid. And if you're not having better results, then that would question what is the truth therefore? What's the value of the truth if the end results are similar? And this can be seen very clearly in the stories of what we call the stories now of those that live in the Jewish environment or in the Old Testament, that often when they go away from truth, their end result and their results in their lives are no different from the pagans around them or the Gentiles around them. The only difference is that they said they worship the Most High God. That's when they went into rebellion. But when they turn to God, then they normally would have a different experience. So I want to peruse this idea here with you about were the pastors and their wives and children getting a better results? And this I'll make it very clear. So our theme is why do some only consider mainstream, not alternative? So why do some? So this now take it. Yesterday I was just talking in general. Now I take it to the church, because when you're in the church, often you'll just run into people who they consider mainstream because they are mainstream. The system is mainstream, and so they just consider only a certain thought that is approved by certain systems. And the other thing I'm dealing with here is the safety, and I can put in quotation mark that the safety of mainline, mainstream government, other approved channels and systems. So what makes a person a child or head of these systems, or how they become the head of it or a child of it? So this is really somebody that is they're the system, they belong to the system, they represent a system, they are a system person, or the mainline person or the mainstream person. What makes that, and what makes a person so believe in the mainline that they does not consider any other thought, don't just dismiss it in hand, and wouldn't even consider what makes a person like that, and what is it that they do that? And do they know, as my topic is, were the pastors and their wives and children eating whatever I'm going to talk about, and were they suffering the results of eating the same thing or partaking of the same product or ideology or behavior as the secular society, while claiming to be religious and that they're in a better situation? Were they eating? And from my evidence, for what I've looked upon, and I'll try to prove it to you today, is that I'm realized that they were just having the same results, and there was no much better protection for them from whatever terrible things that was going on, because whatever the system put out, they believe it, even though they claim to be not part of it, not part of this world. So in John chapter 7, verse 5, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to finish up from yesterday and then move forward with some more thoughts, because some of what I wanted to talk about is in this chapter. So John chapter 5, John chapter 7, verse 5, we pick up there. So in John chapter 7, verse 5, it says, "For neither did his brethren believe in him." So this is important, because remember, the Pharisees didn't believe in him. His brethren believed in him, really, but in the sense of what he was specifically talking about, I believe here, they still were holding some of the what you call the leaven of the scribes and Pharisees. And so Christ was trying to teach them new philosophies and new principles that they were having a hard time getting. And if they didn't unlearn those things and receive the words of God or words of Jesus, they would end up with the same results that the Pharisees were going to get and were getting. So you want to be able to avoid getting these results. And that's basically what I'm trying to communicate to you. That when you believe whatever somebody believes that's getting a bad result, you'll get the bad results also. And people in the church will say, well, I have the anointing blood of the Lord upon them, upon him, upon themselves, upon their family. And it just bear bad results you see in the families. You realize the philosophy is the problem, not claiming blood when there's no philosophy. So notice here, then Jesus said unto them, my time is not yet come, but your time is always ready. So you're always all the time. You can be part of the feast. That's what they was talking about here, and you can go to the feast and you're accepted. The reason why certain people are accepted is because they're children of the system, and so the system accept their own. And so Christ says, if you think like me, you're not going to be able to preach and do the things I do. You're not going to be able to be accepted by the system. So the world cannot hate you, but it hated me. So Christ has been very clear here. The world don't hate its own because they endorse each other, but they get the same bad result. So the world cannot hate you, but it hated, but me it hated, because I testify of it that the works thereof are evil. So Christ was healing the people, doing all kind of good stuff, but because he tell them that the things that they're doing is wrong, they hated him for it. And so if you're not preaching anything like that, as I say, if you have a pastor and they're just doctrinal, and remember, even the pastors that we look upon as most avant-garde in the church are really pastors that are just doctrinal. That's all they do. They just preach doctrine, which is good. But just think about it, those are the cutting edge pastors. They don't really get into morality and anything to do with social. They just talk about politics. No, I'm sorry, they don't talk about it because if you talk about anything to do with morality, they say you're getting involved in politics. So they really are viewed as cutting edge. The cutting edge pastors that we have amongst us is just doctrine. But do they suffer for that? And do their family, their wife and kids suffer? So notice here, the world cannot hate you, but me it hated, because I testify of it that the works thereof are evil. Go ye up unto this feast. I go not up unto this feast, for my time is not yet come. When he had said these words unto them, he abode still in Galilee. But when his brethren were gone up, then went he also up unto the feast, not openly, but as it were in secret. So he went up in secret, and I think that's somewhere around here we left off yesterday. Then the Jews sought him at the feast and said, where is he? And there was much murmuring among the people concerning him. For some said, he is a good man. Others say, nay, but he deceiveth the people. Howbeit no man spake openly of him for fear of the Jews. Now about the midst of the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and taught. And the Jews marveled, saying, how knoweth this man letters, having never learned? Jesus answered them and said, my doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. If any man will do his will, he shall know the doctrine, whether it be of God or whether I speak of myself. He that speaketh of himself seeketh his own glory, but he that seeketh his glory that sent him, the same is true, and no unrighteousness is in him. Now we go now. So did not Moses give you the law, and yet none of you keep the law? Why go ye about to kill me? So notice here, this is literally months before the death of Christ. And he's saying here, you're going about to kill me. And remember, we understand the fact that Jerusalem is a place where prophets get killed. So he goes up to the feast and he says, you're seeking to kill me. The people answered and said, thou hast a devil. Who goeth about to kill thee? Right? Which is the people who are there. Jesus answered and said unto them, I have done one work, and ye all marvel. Moses therefore gave unto you circumcision, not because it is of Moses, but of the fathers. And ye on the Sabbath do circumcise a man. If a man on the Sabbath do receive circumcision, that the law of Moses should not be broken. Are you angry at me because I have made a man ever with whole on the Sabbath day? Judge not according to appearance, but judge righteous judgment, which they couldn't do because they're corrupt. Then said some of them of Jerusalem, is not this he whom they seek to kill? So notice in verse 19 it says, did not Moses, well, it's stated here, did not Moses give you the law, yet you keep the let you none of you keep the law. Why do you about why go ye about to kill me? And they says, who go about to kill you? Then now the question comes at verse 25, whom they're seeking to kill Jesus. So they say, oh yeah, we're seeking to kill him, all right. And I'll stop here now and move on. So it says, but lo, he speaketh boldly, and they say nothing unto him. Do the rulers know indeed that this is the very Christ? So if you see there, they according to the record here is that says they were really seeking to kill him. And why they were seeking to kill him? Because he was preaching to them and trying to free them, but they were so caught up into sin and their own traditions and false equivalents and false, all kind of falsehood, that they were seeking to kill Christ. But the point there to me is what Christ was doing for them was that going to free them and bless them. And were they rejecting the mainline I'm talking about, mainstream, where they're rejecting something for their best interest. And that's always been the case when it comes on to the concept of alternative, that there's people rejecting things that are for their best interest. And it was for their life, because remember, destruction was heading their way. And they were going to crash and burn. And Christ was trying to save them, literally, not just save them in the kingdom, but save them from impending doom. And because Christ was saving them from impending doom, they view Christ as somebody that has the devil, because what they were doing, it was their traditions, it was what they believe in. But what they were doing was destructive to them and to others around them. But they held on to their forms of religion, they held on to their traditions, to their own hurt, and to the hurt of their wives and their kids, which is my point, which is, were the pastors, their wives and their children eating that? Because the philosophies they were eating, the things they were partaking of, was destroying them and taking away their peace and causing them war, famine, and pestilence. But for them, they're holding on to those traditions, holding on to those false concepts that they think they gather from the Bible. And it was really false interpretation from a carnal heart that they were getting from the Bible. And this caused them a lot of pain and suffering. But for them, they're holding on. They're grabbing onto it. And you can see that because they held on to those traditions, they started to view it now that Christ had a devil and that Christ needed to be killed. Christ was the devil, or I speak of from a devil point of view. So life can be that way, where what is viewed as alternative often, not all the way time, but often, is for the salvation of the people. But the people trust in mainstream, mainline. They trust in the systems that are put in place that are causing them harm, and they can't realize that, say, what they're looking at as quackery, what they're looking at as wild and crazy, is actually something that is of value to them, would be of value to them, but they see it as satanic. And so you can, the Bible said this concept that they call good evil and evil good. So one person can come to a point where they become so messed up in their head because what they're eating philosophically and what they're practicing practically, that they can look at somebody like Jesus, who is trying to save them and love them, and whatever they hear from him and whatever he say, it is demonic. Just think about it. Like when you think about Israel today, you think about how important a principle of loving your neighbor as yourself. That one principle for 2,000 years would have done so much good for the Jewish people to this day. But that was one of the principles that Christ taught that they had to murder him for. Because how dare we tell them to love their neighbor as themselves? And here we are today, and nothing has changed. The amount of evil and destruction that they cause others and bring upon themselves is amazing by just becoming so bullheaded. If you just think about it, we say Christ is our leader, so to speak, and we believe in his teaching and we try to, and by God's grace, we make a good effort, the best effort we can to live by his teaching. But the same teachings that we hold dear is the same teaching that a person that believe in whatever, it could be Jewish, it could be Protestant, because the Protestants they cause so much pain and hurt in the last how many 100 years, and it's so much hate and stuff like that. But if you tell them, say, listen, you need to stop, they will see you as the devil. And this is what they did to Christ. They saw Christ as the things he was teaching to heal a man. Just imagine the problem that they had was that he healed a man on the Sabbath, and he's saying, wait a minute, but you can do a circumcision, right, on the Sabbath, but if I go and heal a man that been suffering, you want to kill me. This is how terrible human beings can get. That what is good for them, they see the person as preaching and teaching and telling them that you need to pull up or you need to change your ways as being satanic. And what they're doing is so satanic. Imagine somebody's in pain and suffering or debility or whatever it is. They got healing and they say you must die because you do it on Sabbath. But they go ahead and do all kind of stuff. If, as Christ said, if your horse or your donkey falls into a hole, you're going to sweat and you're going to do everything to get that donkey out of the hole. I mean, because you're going to get that donkey out of the hole, right? But if a person needs healing on the Sabbath, they'll be like, no, that's breaking the Sabbath. We have to keep Moses' law. And he was saying Moses did it. No, it's very interesting what he says there. He said Moses did it because it was something that the fathers, it's something that was done by the fathers, and Moses continued it. And yet you're saying to me, hey, listen, you must do this on the Sabbath day. But if you heal a man, you must die. And this is the type of ridiculous. Just think about it. You know, when you start reading Christ's teachings and you just take every teaching and you say, man, he died for this teaching. They hated him for it. And then you ask yourself the question, has anything changed in 2,000 years? It is amazing when you read the Bible. The Bible comes alive even more. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are you when men are persecute you. Well, who doing the persecution? You know, you start to see the Bible and the Bible comes alive. And then you apply it to current day and you realize the Bible is alive. The Bible is nothing has changed in 2,000 years, no matter what the Protestants and the evolutionists and the crazy people tell you. So here we are now. I'm gonna go to this little list I have here, and I'm gonna come back to this list because I want to just read it for you first, and so you know what I'm talking about. So the topic makes sense to you, as at least it makes sense to me. And then I'm gonna go to First Kings where I dealt with yesterday, and I deal with part of it, the end part of it again. So the question I'm asking here, or the statement, because it's a question, I guess. It says, were the pastors, their wives, and their children eating that? So what am I talking about? That what? Somebody say this is God's church and these are God's pastors. Okay. So the question is, like that, I think the guy name is Bill Ackman, the multi-billionaire investor. He was saying that his children has 72, his child or children going to get 73 vaccines. That's the schedule that they're on. So I say, okay, so he thinking, that's strange. He thinking there's something has to be wrong. Why did they just getting all that injection and give me the pow, 70 something within a few years? So he's questioning it. But the question in my mind is, okay, why would he question that? And he said question it because he listened to RFK Jr. and he brings up 80-something% of the questionings he have with vaccine is logical because he's listening to something that is alternative, outside the mainline doctors and stuff like that. And he's saying that seemed to ring true. See, but what happened when a person locks off all information and I don't want to hear it? What happened is that they shut themselves off. And what if it is true? What if the system have it wrong? What if 73 vaccine is probably 72 too much? What happened then? What happened to the child? Why there's such a high case of autism and all kind of neurological problem in the Western world? Nobody is asking that because you can't ask that. Because if you dare ask that, something's wrong with you. But, okay, but that's secular people. Is a pastor child going to get those 73? Does he eat that? Does his child eat that? Premarin. So I just put those two first because I mentioned those two. Nasal decongestion, talcum powder, subprime loans, housing crash, or are they being affected by this? Or they because they accept truth, they're in a different experience? Or they just eating whatever the secular society is eating? Bought Bitcoin at the top. Cryptocurrency scam, since a whole lot of Adventist churches and pastors got caught into that. Are they eating that? Are they just swallowing that stuff and getting messed up, and there's no difference between them and secular people? Because cryptocurrency scam hit the church recently, this year, last year. People already gone to prison. Operation White Coat, which is, and I'll get back to that, what Operation White Coat is. Financial support of Iran-Contra mess. Are the pastors and their wives and their children supported that? Were they part of that, or were they going on the pulpit warning the people, don't eat that? Oral HPV cancer among men, are they eating that? All right. So remember, all of what I asked you, just a smattering of things that I know affected the church and their members and the pastors and their wife and the kids. This is in light of the church, because somebody could say, well, whatever. Well, listen to this. This is in light of the churches emptying out, closing, and lack of young adults. So somebody could say, Lloyd, we're in this world and things happen. Yeah, but the things that are happening is wiping out the clergy out of the church, their wives and their kids, and emptying out the church. So if the preaching is supposed to make you put in a better situation, and you're supposed to be the watchman on the wall telling you that trouble is coming, are they dying also from these things? Are they getting messed up financially, messed up health-wise from these things? Are they doing better because they are the watchmen that are really looking out? Because here's the reason why this is important to me before I go to the next text. Because when I look at, as I say, my theme here, when I look at my theme, where some people don't consider alternative, because they don't consider alternative, does that mean that they have a better result? Because somebody could say, I'm mainline, but does that mean that you get a better result than somebody that will consider other options or consider other facts or information? Because when you look at it, you say, well, if you're part of the system and you're mainline, you're supposed to do better, right? The children of the system are supposed to do better. That means if I'm part of the oppressed people or the people that are less than, I'm not supposed to have better outcome than somebody that is the system, that is the representative of the system. I'm supposed to do worse than the representative of the system. So in all aspects of life, theologically, socially, financially, health-wise, all aspects of life, if I'm the person over here and you compare apples to apples or apples to plum, and the system, the pastors, the leaders of the system, as I say, Thursday, tomorrow I'll deal with the general public. But now I bring it because of we normally talk about religious matters. If I look at their lifestyle, their financial, their social, everything, I'm saying, are they having better results? Like, in other words, how I think about life when I'm younger, the people that at general conference, the union, whatever, they're supposed to have the best result, because imagine they're the watchman looking out, making sure. So they're supposed to have the better results. They're supposed to know, they're supposed to on the inside. Well, let's take it a little bit further. If I'm looking at the presidency and those that are in the White House, they're supposed to have the best results because they're supposed to be protected, right? They're the big people. It's like if you're watching something and somebody say, my previous job was at Enron or Lehman Brothers or Countrywide Mortgage. You're supposed to say that's the top of the system. That's at the top of the food chain. They're not supposed to get taken out financially. They're supposed to know what's going on. They're on the inside. They're the experts. So when something financially goes down, you're supposed to say, well, the children of the system are supposed to be protected. I'm not the one that's supposed to get a worse result than them. Does that make sense? You're supposed to look at a doctor, in other words, my point here, and you look at the doctor and you say, the doctor is supposed to have the best outcome because he has access and he knows the best stuff that FDA is approving. The doctor is supposed to be the healthiest human being on the planet, doctors, right? And the person that's supposed to have the best outcome is the pastor, their wives, and their kids, because they're on the inside. They they're close. They're God's anointed. They're closely connected with God, right? Isn't that how it's supposed to go? They're closer to God, so they're supposed to get. They're in the family supposed to get better results, and the rest of us supposed to eat crow or something like that. All right, that's what's supposed to happen. So if you look at it, you're saying, and that you question it, you say, wait a minute, they're not. How are they not having better results? How do they have crypto scam and they're taking out the pastors and they're heading on to prison? I thought they're supposed to know better. And they're supposed to be protecting the members. Oh, the members got taken too. And then you start to realize there's a problem, right? And here's the other thing also. When you stand up, you're a child of the system or you're the head of the system, you first go in line. In other words, if they come out with the vaccine, who's going to get vaccinated first on national TV? It's going to be the president, right? He better take that vaccine first. And then after him is all the king's horses and all the king's men and whoever is in his cabinet. They're going to get it first, right? Because they're the system. So often I've seen that situation. I always say, wait a minute. It probably is bad to be the head of the system because when everything is rolled out, you're going to have to roll out first and start talking. You can't go say nothing different because you're the system, right? You're supposed to have to go there because you go get it first because you represent the system. So who's if you have somebody that represents the system, aren't they supposed to be the first person to make their child get 73 vaccines? Premarin. Isn't the pastor's wife and the doctor's wife and the doctor's kids? Nasal decongestion. Because you're thinking the doctor has all access to those things. I remember years ago, as an example, I give you here. I'm trying to wind a very difficult thought. So just bear with me. So years ago, I remember I watched a documentary. I think it was a PBS documentary. I can't remember what it was. And they're talking about fast food. It's called the Fast Food Nation or something like that. And one of the person they interviewed was actually one of the Skians, I don't know how they call it. So one of the children of, I think it was the McDonald's empire. I think if just you can go there and watch it. It's something like the Fast Food Nation or stuff like that. And basically what it was, or was it that one of the ice cream people? Yeah, I can't remember. So just take it, either Baskin Robbins or one of them. But one of these kids that grew up in the home of one of these things. And so he was talking about by the time he reached a certain age, his health was a mess because he had like unlimited access to junk food. And I was thinking, oh, that's how that works. So imagine you're growing up and you're part of the DuPont family. And you basically can get every day and just lather yourself in toxic chemicals. What's gonna happen to you and your kids, right? Because it's your system, and you have to bathe in that stuff. Just imagine if you're one of the children of the Monsanto. I don't know who them name is, but one of the Monsanto empire. You're supposed to get up every day, and every cereal you eat, every wheat, every grain you eat, everything is genetically engineered, right? And then what happened to their kids? Are they kids? They're children of the system now. They represent the head. And they're supposed to come out the healthiest because remember, this is so good, this is supposed to make them look excellent. This is how being young, I guess, you think about it, you say, well, imagine that if genetic engineer food and pigs and goats supposed to be the best, they head of the system supposed to partake of that all the time and just eat that stuff up. Just imagine unlimited amount of talcum powder for the Johnson. I think it's the Johnson and Johnson family. They have to do great, excellent. I better find them. I know they're in New Jersey. As a matter of fact, I used to go to a church that one of the heirs were actually used to be a member. I think he had moved away. I used to be a member of church. So that would have been interesting if I had this mindset and I would had an opportunity to meet him. Say, what happened? You used to just shower. After you shower, you just powder yourself and that stuff. And it's free. All the talcum powder you want. Yeah, so that's interesting. Like, you think, as I say, the best outcome should be the president, right? And the Congress people, they should have the best health, the best, right? That's how it is because they're the head of the system. So that thought bring me back to, I wanted to go back to First Kings before I move on. And I'm going to flesh out some of those other things that I just mentioned. So First Kings chapter 18, verse 15 through 19. So this is a text I read. I'm just go back to the end of it because there's something here I wanted to point it out. And as I say, so these kind of convoluted thoughts that I have to try to explain to you here. So and I don't know, have you ever thought about life like that? Like you think, like they just think about it like if you Eli Lilly, Novartis, whatever, the children of those and the people there, they suppose like do they eat that stuff for candy? So in First King chapter 18, verse 15 through 19, it says, and Elijah said, as the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself unto him today, which is Obadiah, manager, so to speak, or boss, which is Ahab. And Obadiah said, hey, listen, Elijah, you need to, Elijah told him, say, I want to go see your boss. And he said, just tell him that to make himself present. And so Obadiah went and meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. Very interesting, though. See, Elijah was told Obadiah, the servant of Ahab, tell your boss, come and see me. The king is being summoned, so to speak. So notice here, and it came to pass when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, art thou he that troubleth Israel? So just think about everything that we say here, right? When you question things from an alternative point of view, because there's alternatives, this is what the system and those that are eating, whatever they're eating, they'll say, you're causing the trouble. And they say, you the quack. So imagine how rich that is, that somebody that sits on the board of, say, the FDA, which is being accused of all kind of criminality and killing and death and destruction, and war, famine, and pestilence. They tell you that you the quack. And you say how much blood you have on your hands and how much bribe you have in your hands. This is the thing. You causing the trouble. So Ahab caused the trouble. But here's the interesting thing, though. The famine was from the Lord. And at that point, while Ahab was walking around, because he was trying to find, I think, grain or grass for the animals. That's where all this thing come about. So it doesn't mean that when something is happening, it's not going to affect the system. And so somebody with an alternative, and you saw that especially with COVID, when COVID-19 hit, those that are the children of the system, they got affected greatly. And as you hear, you listen to me here, I was here saying, listen, yeah, it starts in the inner city because the city is going to be the primary hit first. But he's going to go out. He's going to travel out to the rural areas and stuff. Ain't nobody going to get protected. In this situation, the famine was affecting Ahab himself. And Elijah, bread and water was sure. And Elijah actually went outside of the place. They're looking for him, and he just went and go to some foreign country. I think if my memory serves me right, which is the irony of the story. The story is so strange because he went, I think, to Lebanon or somewhere on there, Sidon or something like that. He went to actually where he went to where I think Ahab's wife was from. Don't quote me on that, but look into that, something along that line, right? So very, very strange story. You see these people in the play and interplay even to this day. Like when you look at the news and you're talking about, Jerusalem and, Haifa and all these different places and Sidon or Lebanon. It's just fascinating. It's like we're still back there fighting wars, famine and bloodshed. So notice here, so he says, you trouble Israel. So the question is, as somebody says, listen, we can't be like shooting up these kids with the vaccine. They want to run them out of town. And they say, you're causing trouble. Okay. So and he answered and said, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, in that ye have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and thou hast followed Baalim. So this is important. We have a system now where we just pack the kids with all kind of drugs. And then by the time they're 18, I've seen people say, now they cut them off the drugs. They just go to the street and start buying the drugs. But this is the system that we have created within the U.S., where we have figured out how to pack the society with all kind of drugs. And this is how we do our business here. And then we see all these people drugged up on the street. And then we say, who's causing this? Who's causing this? Is it the mainline causing this? Or is it the drug dealers? And they say, oh, it's the drug dealers. I say, really? But where did these people start with their drugs? Who was writing them prescription? Why is Walgreens, Rite Aid, CVS, all these pharmaceutical pharmacies, why are they being suing for being a part of the problem? Them and the doctors being part of the problem with the drug problem. And we see the result of it. You see the lawsuit, but you say, wait a minute, wow, how this? And you can go online and you can, as I say, you don't have to prove me wrong. Just go do your own research and see what was the source of all these people on prescription medication. Who was writing them the prescription? And then when the prescription run out because they clamped down, all these people turn to the streets. And now they're getting stuff that are not, at least when they go to Walgreens or Rite Aid or wherever. And I know Rite Aid took the biggest hit on this one because they already filed bankruptcy. But when they went to Rite Aid to fill those prescriptions, right, those prescriptions were written by doctors. And they were what they call pill mills. The pill mills were officially, according to the government and according to researchers, was a official business. It was the system. And people believed in it and started just eating that stuff like it was candy. And now, when they calm down and they say we have a problem, they find that in some states, they like Tennessee and stuff like that, it's amazing amount of people on legal prescription drugs. And now you say, who did that? But now they go now because at least the pharmacists and stuff like that, it was a controlled substance. And they could give them the medication based upon what would not kill them. Now you're going to somebody inside the street who's basically buying decongestant and cooking it up themselves and then serve it to people. Well, they can't really. They're probably not A students in chemistry. They're probably killing the people because they don't know what they're doing. At least the pharmacists and the drug manufacturers, at least they could give them proper dosage. I'm not saying it's better, but I'm just saying they created a problem. They probably could control it better. So who's causing all this problem? So as you go around, you see these homeless people on the street. You could think, oh, the drug dealers are so terrible. Yeah, they are. I'm not taking that away. But who caused the problem? Where did the problem come from? Who got all these people on these drugs? And who became phenomenally wealthy? Well, it's kind of troubling because Rite Aid is one of the big people in the lawsuits, and yet they went bankrupt. So where all the money went? It just went up in smoke, up somebody's nose and up somebody's vein. See, but you could look at it, you can say the problem is the street. And I'm not saying the problem is not the street. But if you understand alternative information and you're not being sold what is primarily being pushed by mainline media, is often owned by these things, you start to realize that the problem started with the doctors. They were writing the prescription. Then the pharmacy was filling it. And people were just like high. And then when they cut it off, the people went to the street and then they started dying, even like in worse numbers. They were already dying from Xanax and all those things. But who was giving them Xanax? What is Xanax? That's a legal drug. But that get the people on the way. So all these young people on Prozac and all that type of stuff, they're just like set up for destruction because after they cut them off, after they reach 18 or whatever, they're just going to go to the street to get their high. Where do we do that? How do they develop that habit? But you see, the system. So when I see that, I say, wow, the system eats its own. It's probably not the best. So this is why the question, were the pastors, their wives, and their children got caught up into that? Because that's a reality. The church is not just emptied out and closing churches because of just, oh, the people don't like doctrine or don't like Jesus. They like a lot of candies. That's the problem. How did this happen? This is happening across the board. People in the church and out the church. When you have people in the church, pastors committing suicide and all kind of stuff like that, you realize it's a problem. But if you say that, there's, oh, you're causing trouble. I'm causing trouble. I'm just pointing out that's a blind. Notice here, you serve Israel unto Mount Carmel, and the prophets of Baal, 450, and the prophets of the groves, 400, 950, which eat at Jezebel's table. So think about this now. You read that story, and this is where people say the Bible is harsh, and they're not thinking. It's just they're not thinking. Just think about this. The prophets of Baal, 950 of them, that eats at Jezebel's table, as they're sitting there eating, Jezebel just command to kill via air because the woman ride the beast. And she's riding the beast and she has a table, and in the table is 950 prophets that eat at her table. They're being fed. But God's true prophet just got killed. So when these prophets got hacked down, before they get hacked down or before they get chopped up, you have to think about it and say, wait a minute. They're comfortable eating at Jezebel table. Man, that's a lot to swallow. What are they eating? Which is go back to my topic, where the pastors and their wives and their children eating that. Are they sitting down and quiet while all this is going on? Why the pastors don't talk about this? So why they're not trying to help the people? And why you have to go to alternative to hear this? Because like I'm here. This is why I'm here doing this. Because you won't hear this from the church. But it doesn't mean that because they don't preach it, that they're not a partaker. They're not yum, 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 eating up that stuff. Because they're eating it and their kids are dying of the same results. Their wives are messed up. So I'll go back to my test. Back to my main thing before I go to that last text. So notice here, let's talk about some of this now. Because you see somebody and they're part of the system. And you say, wow, this person, they have the best. They get the best steak, the best filet mignon. I'm not saying that right. 73 vaccines later. And you say, that's why you're part of the system. Your children get to get shot after shot after shot with no alternative thought. Premarin, which is pregnant mares, pregnant, which is a horse urine, pregnant horses, and the urine have high amount of estrogen, and the women need supplement for estrogen. So who was eating that and who was dying of cancer? So you think, oh, those women, they get the best horse urine. And how many of them now are dead and are dying and suffering? And this is the benefit of being in a mindset where there's no other source. There's no black coash. There is no other herbs for the healing of the nation, for the healing of these women. There was nothing else to do. There was no food to eat that could have helped them. But they look and they say, well, why is it that women in other countries don't have this problem? Is there something else? Oh, no, don't talk. So the system says there's nothing else to do. There's no herbs to take. There's no dietary change. There's no lifestyle change. Nothing he can do when a woman reaches menopause, because other women in other countries don't go through the severity of the hot flashes and stuff like that as in the same rate as in American women. So what the American system says, we take care of you. You're the best. You get the best advanced medicine. What we're going to do with you, we're going to give you this horse urine. And they gave the women this horse urine. But was the pastor's wife taking horse urine? Were their wives dying of cancer? That's the question. Because they're the watchman on the wall. They're supposed to be doing what I'm sitting here trying to do. Were their wife partaking? Were their kids partaking of that 73 vaccine? And that's the question I have to ask. When they had sinus problems, were they taking nasal decongestion? I can say this because I have sinus problems. And so I remember when I was younger, the doctor gave me this type of stuff and I took it and it didn't help. That's my personal opinion. Now, somebody could have a different. Well, here's the thing. My thing, it didn't help me. So here's the thing. When this came out this year, I was like, wow, it took 20-something years. When I took that stuff, I remember I went to the doctor and I took it and I'm like, this thing feels like it's burning up my nose. And I remember taking different things like, they would be different, like Dayquil, NyQuil, whatever. Nothing helped. And I was like, what in the world? And that's why, one of the reasons why I started looking for alternative, because it wasn't helping. But I'm assuming that thing is coming off the shelf like hot bread. So it must be helping somebody, but it didn't help me, right? Not thinking that 20-something years later, they will come out and say, it doesn't do anything for anybody. All it does is that people buy it and then break it down. I don't know how they cook it in the shed or in the kitchen, and then make it into meth. And that's what it did. It was good for make drugs. That's what they did. And when I heard it, I was like, wow. So all this time, they were just selling people nothing and making boatloads of money. But this is the children of the system. And if you don't consider alternative, you're thinking they're winning, but they're not. So I put that one there third because that one there is close to me. Because I say I suffer from sinus problem all my life. And it was alternative methods that gave me results. As I say, I preach what I practice. I don't practice, what I preach. I don't preach and then try to practice it. I practice it and I can share it because I know it's personal. But at least now, this is validation. The system had to come out and say, yeah, we've just been poisoning our people and just drugging them up. Talcum powder, you know that. This is something that after you bathe, you put it on and it dry you out. That thing was filled with asbestos and lawsuits over that, cancer causing again. But that's when you're in the system and you're considered no other information. I remember when I was younger, they would have these products. I haven't used product like that anymore, but I haven't come across product. But when you have children, they will use product that will have some type of starch base and something to dry out thing for, I think, diaper ration, stuff like that. Don't quote me on that. It's been long years. Subprime loans. You remember when the subprime loans happened in 2008? They have not solved that problem yet. Somebody said, Lloyd, the subprime loan thing was solved in the sense that the debt is part of the national debt. The destruction was so much, right? But was the watchman on the wall telling people, listen, you need to stay away from that stuff? Or the watchman on the wall was suffering themselves from it? And what you find is a lot of people suffered from it in the system. Remember, a large part of the indebted or the problem with the retirement of the pastors was that 2008 took out a lot of the retirement fund for the general conference. So what I'm saying here is you can go look at the documentation and they'll tell you that the retirement got hit. I think got hit big time. So 2008 damaged a lot of the retirement funds and pulled them down so greatly. And this is a crisis that we could face again, because 2020, 12 years later, the retirement funds got hit again, and the society basically add to the debt of the nation to save the retirement fund. But think about it. Is that really a save? If the retirement funds were saved again in 2020 when COVID hit, and they saved it, but the country's more indebted. So wait a minute. My retirement is saved, but per person I have more indebtedness. Is there a pastor telling you that there's a problem here? Do you see there's a problem there? The country's more in debt, $33 trillion. Part of that debt was to save the retirement fund, to save the stock market. Because if the stock market goes down, people retirement, 401ks are going to go with it. You see the problem there? Somebody said, oh yeah, but I'm getting my Social Security. Yeah, you're getting the Social Security, but again, the country's in debt. The system is in debt, but you're getting your pay. Do you see where there could be a problem down the road? And not far down the road. That's a different discussion. So that's what the watchman's supposed to be. So if he's not telling you, could it be that he's not warned also? The housing crash that came after, so many people lose their money, including everybody. So again, if the watchman is not on the wall telling you, could it be that he's part of the debacle? He's part of the mess? How about the Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin at top? How many people bought Bitcoin at the top? Was your pastor telling you, say, you better not buy that thing at top? And how many people lost their money? The church people lose their money. Cryptocurrency scam, this is confirmed because the head of it in some of the churches in New York that got taken, or different Haitian church got taken. But how many pastors were part of that? Adventist pastors. So if they're not on the wall telling you, don't get involved with that, could it be that they're getting involved with that themselves? And they're suffering the consequence. In other words, as I say, if they're at the head of the system and they don't consider anything alternative information, could it be that they're suffering from rejecting anything that is not approved by the system? But the system is not approving it, but the system is being affected by what they don't approve. I don't know if you can get that complicated thought, but it's kind of a bit simple. Operation White Coat, if you just put in your browser, Operation White Coat, COAT, and you look at that, that was an experiment that was primarily done by the government, the military arm of the government, on Seventh Adventist children that they were experimented with. So I'm sure you've seen videos of it, and it was always like a movie where they get people, and instead of injecting rats or mice or mouse or chimpanzee or monkeys, they get human beings and they injected them with different viruses and see how they react. And you say, okay, that's a movie. And then you go and do a Google search or watch a video, and until you find out that Adventists and the children of the Adventists were actually Seventh Adventists were being experimented on to see how they respond to various different viruses, and I think vaccines and stuff like that. The live, you can get a live guinea pig or a live chimp, and they were live chimps. Were the pastors suffering from this? Their children, their wives, where some of them end up married to people were experimented on. Did they suffer being injected with all these viruses? But the watchman on the wall was supposed to be telling, and you read about it, you find out that the government can't tell them to consult with your pastor. So imagine you consult the pastor says, go ahead, do it for your country, take those vaccines or take those injections. No, financial supporters of the Iran-Contra mess. So you think about it, the primary, how the Iran-Contra mess went down. It was Ronald Reagan direct the government to basically use the proceeds of drugs that was being flooded into the black community to pay for Iran war, Contra war. You just think about that, right? So the black people in the black communities who had black pastors, were they telling the members that says you're targeted for destruction because you're gonna have to pay, you and your kids gonna have to pay by buying drugs and being drugged up and killed by drugs for the American war machine. So when you hear the president currently saying we have unlimited support for the Ukrainian war because we're fighting against Russia, or for the war with Israel, or Israeli war, who's going to pay for that? Who's telling you that? Say, listen, that's going to be a mess, and you're paying for that mess. All right, you're supposed to be braced for this. At least you know what's coming, because you look at the national debt, and there's no way this drunken spending that we're doing with warmongering and all. The next is Taiwan. And there's nobody telling the country, nobody telling the older generation. That generation, to me, is like they're running the church and they're running the country. And it's just crazy. Oral HPV cancer among men. Did anybody telling the pastor, now this wife, so to speak, with the pastor, that he should stop eating and he shouldn't eat that? All right. And the question is there no balm in Gilead? The question is asked. Is there no strong back, sarsaparilla, ginseng? Was there no epimedium? Is there nothing for the pastor that all he can do is eat? And then he ends up with oral cancer. How different is he than the secular people, than the superstars and the people dying of oral cancer? It doesn't mean because you're at the top of the system. If you practice life the way the system practice life, then you will end up with the same results. Your results not going to be different. If you're eating and the secular people eating or the pagans eating, you're going to end up with the same oral cancer because both are eating. And you shouldn't eat, you should find some herbs. But you can't talk to people and tell them, say, there's probably some herbs that can help you get some strength. No, you're not going to be able to tell them that, because for them, anything alternative is quackery and crazy. And that's what I saw in the church. We're going to go to the world tomorrow. Saw it in the church, but you see the result. The result doesn't change. Because you practice what they practice, you eat what they eat, you're going to get the same result and the same HPV that they're getting. So notice here, this is in light of the church empty now. Now, why do I make that point? Because somebody could say, well, you know what? Listen, at the end of the day, the end result is death and destruction. And the church failing because that generation, it seemed like it's just time ticking, that they're just getting wiped out because they don't consider nothing alternative, which is truth to me often. Facts, reality that can't be, not even, nobody can go against. It's just the reality of our lives. And they refuse to preach. They refuse to tell people anything that's going to protect them, to be watchmen. And yet it caused the church to empty out and institution close and young people getting wiped out because they weren't protected. And why young people not per se leaving the church because they don't believe in doctrine. They leave in church because they be messed up like their parents. So my question is the pastor protected? Is the members protected? No, nobody's protected. Truth is empirical. Truth is objective. And no matter if you don't accept it, you say, oh, it's quackery. It don't change nothing. I remember I was having a discussion with somebody I know a few years back. And I was saying to him that I say how the doctors are prescribing all these drugs and it's causing people to be hooked on these various different mental, neurological drugs, and it's messing up the society. And he turned to me and said, Eva, I am on those drugs. I was like, you on those drugs? And he said, yeah. You get off those drugs. So imagine a church or the pastor not telling you, I said, listen, there's a problem here. You need to be aware and need to do something different, get some alternative. You're in pain, find some alternative for your pain. Don't take those drugs. You take the drugs if it's an emergency or if you run out of options. It should be your last option. You should try to find an alternative for your pain. But who telling them that? So they're suffering. It doesn't mean a general conference is a general conference president from him down all the way down is not suffering. They're all suffering. Because if you don't consider alternative, you don't preach alternative, then you're suffering and the people are suffering because these things don't change. If you have, if your nasal passage is blocked up, well, you need something. And if somebody says, I'm not going to do an alternative, then die then. It's just not going to work. And that's what's happening. They're dying. And because what happened? They refuse because they say, oh, no, we only consider mainline. Really? You following the mainline? That's it? That's the only thing to consider? So they don't benefit. I don't see how they benefit. So notice in Luke chapter 23, verse 26, Luke 23, verse 26. And as they led him away, they laid upon him upon one Simon, a Cyrenian. So normally people say this is a black guy, coming out of the country, and on him they laid the cross that he might bear it for Jesus. You'd be like, how did I get up involved in this? Oh, you're gonna take this black man and just grab him and put a cross on him. As a matter of fact, that's a side note here because I do a lot of side notes. I was watching when the massacre happened in Israel a few weeks back. I was watching the videos and I'm like, why there's so much black people in these videos? Like there's black Palestinians, and I start going online and reading them to find out that black people always been up in that area for a long while, and a lot of the refugees just leaving from Africa. Sometimes they end up in Palestine. Now I was thinking that's has to be a tough situation. You leave in Africa because Western Europeans are giving you a bad time down there, and your leaders are corrupt and they're taking bribes, and then you flee because you probably flee for food, and you end up in Gaza. I know they're probably Muslim. I guess they could be Christians also. But that has to be like, I don't know, like that's jumping out of a frying pan and jumping into a fire. You go from frying pan to fire. Like you get burned either way. Like, why are they over there fighting? This is crazy. For me, my option there, as I'll say here, I believe that all the Palestinians should leave Gaza. I don't believe you don't resist evil. Those people are evil. You just have to leave. I wouldn't be fighting them. You can't win. Western Europe don't do, as I said before, they don't do two-state solution. That's a fairy tale, a pipe dream. They're just gonna keep killing those people. It's not, and America gonna back that until they die. I wouldn't do it. I would just leave. I wouldn't fight. I don't be. If I had a member there, if somebody listening from there, I'd tell them, man, get on. If you have to swim, or go just fight your way into Egypt and then just leave that place. You're just doomed. They'll never win. It's if you understand these people, their mindset is they don't do two-state solution. So notice here, and so the Cyrenian. So that I got here because of the black guy. So they grab the black guy, and put the cross upon him. So notice verse 27. So I remember C.D. Brooks read this and he said they've been doing this to black people forever. So notice verse 27. So it says, and there followed him a great company of people and of women, which also bewailed and lamented him. But Jesus turned unto them, said, Daughter of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming in the which they shall say, Blessed are the barren and the wombs that never bear, and the paps, or I guess is the breast, that which never gave suck. So you look at what's going on over there, and you be like, why would you want to have a child in that type of environment? This is terrible. Yeah, kids getting bombed, and on both sides, kids getting killed, and this is just terrible. So then shall they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in a dry? That's a very good statement here. I'll end on this thought here for the next few minutes, and then I'll start back on this thought by God's grace tomorrow when we talk about health. Because if they can do this to themselves, if they can do this to their own, the children of the system, all the way to the top, what are they going to do to me? So I have to be more careful. I believe that if you're part of the system, you have to be careful, but I don't think you have to be as careful as me. Because I'm looking at the system and thinking, man, they do that to themselves. Man, what do they do to me? It scare me, right? And that's kind of what it is. You know, how I look at it. No matter, you could take me social, health, financial. I'm saying, man, if they do that to their own, they eat their own. Man, if they eat in their own like that, what chance do I have, right? And that's what Christ is saying. If you do this to a green tree, if you do it to him, he means healing the sick, casting out devils, preaching the word, teaching the people, blessing the people, feeding the people, all this stuff, and they murdered him. Telling people that turn the other cheek, go the extra mile, love your neighbor as yourself, do unto others you like to do, love the Lord, praise the Lord, healing the sick. Imagine they murdered him because he healed somebody on the Sabbath. You just imagine people that wicked. So if you can do that to Jesus, what more they can do to you? And this is still today, no change. I remember I was watching an interview with a guy from Brooklyn in Israel, and he said there's no Palestinian land and whatever. I'm thinking, man, we live amongst people like that. He's Jewish from Brooklyn, and he's saying, man, it's just like wipe them out. And I'm thinking, man, if they can do that, and those are bad people. So I'm thinking, but in Christ's situation, Christ was a good man. and they murdered him. So again, when I look at the children of the system and I'm thinking, man, white coat, they experimented on their own and the pastor right off on that. And the pastors can do that to their own, which were white pastors with white kids. What would they do to me? That's the system doing it to their own children. So the pastor can sit back and watch their wife eating horse urine all day long. What would they do to me? That's what Christ is saying. If they do that to their own, if they do that to the best, what would they do to somebody that they consider not best? Oh, they grab him and throw a cross on him. Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, I thank you, dear Lord, for your word in this day. I pray that you may bless us, dear Lord, that we might stay awake and not go sleeping and not be vigilant. May you bless us, dear Lord, as we go through this day and for practicing and doing the things that you say that we might be protected and always seeking alternative for our suffering. This is my prayer in Jesus' name, amen. Well, thanks for being with me here on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you again live tomorrow. We should talk about natural health. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.